If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com. Now, Positively Ernie with Ernie Anastas, a New York TV legend and radio host with great positive stories and interviews.
Thanks, Ernie. You're the best.
And now, here's Ernie.
And here we are. We're back with more for you on Positively Ernie. Thanks for joining us. I love doing this show, bringing you information that you can use. I like to find a problem and look for solutions, okay? Today, I've got a great guest. Known her for a while. She's just a fabulous personality. Say hi to Rachel DeAlto. Rachel, hold my hands. Nice to have you here.
It's a little cold right now.
No, it's okay. It's okay, but you have a warm heart. I know you and a great personality. You are a dating relationship expert. You're a television personality. People probably have seen you in a lot of the shows. Married at First Sight, Kiss, Bang, Love. I mean, you've done it all. How does it feel to be doing all the things you're doing? Are you happy?
I am so happy.
Yeah.
I have to say, it's a pretty great gig when you're focused on helping people make connections.
Isn't it nice?
It really is.
And you're doing the thing that you love,
Yes.
and it shows. You
Yes.
see it in a person's face. They smile. They feel good. We're going to talk about dating today and a lot of other things.
I'm ready.
Tell me something.
Okay.
Are you having a good time with your own life?
Yes, I actually just got married
Hey,
about
congrats.
7 months ago. We've been together for almost 7 years.
7 months.
Yeah, so 7
Wow.
months ago we officially tied the knot.
Oh,
so it's pretty awesome. We're in the
congratulations.
honeymoon stage.
Isn't
but,
that wonderful?
It is really wonderful.
Was it love at first sight, or?
It was definitely. I always think you grow in love. It's always lust at first sight. I think we have that initial attraction to
Yeah.
people, and then you grow in love. And it was definitely. I knew pretty quickly that this was going to be my person.
It's a beautiful thing when
Yeah.
you find the person that you
Yes.
want to be with.
Yep.
And you know it.
It's so easy.
Yeah,
we have
I
the most
know.
peaceful, easy relationship. It's a blast.
Do you
So I
talk
couldn't be
about?
happier.
I'm very curious because
Yeah.
this is part of what we're talking about. When you meet the person that you want to be with, do you go through in a natural way, not like a whole list, but do you go through a lot of the things like what makes us compatible?
Yes.
Do our personalities match? Are there issues that may become a problem down the road? Have you done that?
Yes, well, especially since it wasn't our first time around. So I was married previously. He was married previously, and so you want to make sure when you get married later in life that you're really going in there for the right reasons. And even just before we even thought about getting married, it's being in a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
When you're thinking about possibly blending families and really making that commitment, you have to see, how do our values match up? Where are we going? Are we in the same direction? And is it easy? Because I think, you can deal with a lot of drama and chaos in your 20s and maybe in your early 30s. But by the time you hit 40, you're like, no.
Yeah.
I just want to have a good time. I want someone that gives me butterflies and I feel respected by and I trust implicitly. And so those are the things that I think I looked for and I wish I looked for when I was younger.
Rachel, you bring up a good topic because that's part of what we're discussing today with dating and relationships. People learn from previous relationships.
Yes.
And a lot of people say that it's good that you have some experience to draw on
Yes.
because we learn and it becomes better. Like the song goes, love is lovelier the
Yes.
second time around. and maybe it may not be the second marriage, but it could be just another relationship that you're going to
Yes.
and you make it better, right?
Yeah. I think we have to learn from our past relationships. If we're not paying attention, if we're not having some sort of level of self-awareness and really thinking through what could I have done differently or what could I have chosen differently in the partner and really learn from that and grow from that, then you're just going to keep repeating the same cycle.
Yeah, well, congratulations, by the way. May you have many, many, many happy years together.
I hope
Hey, listen,
so.
there's a study out.
Yes.
Singles in America.
Yes.
Okay, I was looking at this thing, a lot of new trends. One of the things that really stood out, AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, tell me how that's coming into the dating and the whole relationship thing.
It's becoming a huge component. So yes, Match puts out a Singles in America study every year.
Yeah.
This is the 13th study that they've done. They survey 5,000 people. So it's a pretty large study. And they found with AI is that people are really starting to integrate it in their messaging, in their photos. And sometimes it's problematic because people are finding that if you're altering your picture with AI, it's a deal breaker.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah, if you're using it to write all your messages, it's a deal breaker. So figuring out, because we're still kind of stepping into it. It's not that everybody's using it right now. It's that everybody's thinking about using it. And we want to make sure that we're using it right so that we're not actually creating deal breakers.
So what are the pluses and the minuses here? Okay, initially when you said AI, you start having all of these messages and talking points and maybe your profile and so forth. Hey, we don't have to talk about fake.
Yes.
Fake stuff is everywhere, and I can't stand it. But okay, so we have to worry about that. What do you do to protect yourself, and how is it working on a positive note?
So it's really showing that we can use it for our benefit in terms of really helping to maybe draft a message, maybe think of topics to ask. Use it for ideation is what I always say. Don't use it for replacement of conversation, because AI is not funny. It is not. It's not funny. It doesn't have your tone. It doesn't have your inflection. And yes, it's becoming trained better, but we're really trying to make sure that people still show their personality, because we want people to connect based on their authentic selves. So if you're like, I don't know what to say to this person, these are the things that they like, what's a good entry line?
Well, that could be helpful.
That's helpful.
Yeah. Now, have there been success stories? I mean, people say that, you know what, it really helped me. It made me connect with someone, and we got to know each other, and we were honest. Using AI, but in an honest way.
Yeah, I haven't heard actual word on this, word on the street success stories yet, but I'm sure they're coming, and I'm sure they're out there. It's just, I want to encourage people to utilize it to your benefit without replacing who you are as a human, because human connection is what we're here for. Yeah. So we want to make sure that that's a part of it. But it's definitely helpful. Just don't create a new picture. If I see another AI LinkedIn headshot or dating profile pictures, it's like, you want to show who you are, take off the filters.
Exactly.
This is the person that you're going to be with in person, hopefully, very soon.
Rachel, there's a quote, I love quotations, and there's one that says, and in the end, the masks came off, and people looked at each other and they said, what a terrible waste.
Yes.
They were hiding behind this mask when there was something really beautiful and genuine underneath all of that. Do you think we're better off now in terms of communications? Like, I was looking at the study, and people are willing to talk more about finances, for example.
Yeah.
How do you feel about money? How do you feel about having kids?
Yep.
And where do you want to live? And having your values in place, because that can really be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More singles than ever are really focused on finding someone who's financially compatible and really having those conversations on the table earlier than ever, because I think we've seen that really hiding parts of ourselves or letting it wait until it's further down the line is just causing more problems. And so if you asked me 10 years ago, we did this segment and we talked about, what do you not talk about on the first date? What do we always say? It was like politics and money and religion. And now we talk about all those things the minute that we're connecting with someone.
True.
And in some ways, we probably could work through that a little bit better. But in a lot of ways, it's really setting the stage for a potential of a really healthy relationship, because everything's on the table. And then you're able to really have those really fruitful discussions based on where are your priorities.
I think that's so important, because, if you really know, if you know where you stand and you're honest, okay, if you're honest about it, then you can sit and say, okay, you know what, we can work this out. There may be an issue, but you find a middle ground, and if you say if it's really worth it. If not, I'm sorry. I mean, I've been married a long time, and I look at it and I say, you can destroy something that's beautiful.
Yep.
When you talk about the basics, okay, money is important.
Yes.
I think another thing that's very important, and the study shows that as well, talking about family, because many times family can either really help the relationship or break them up.
Yes.
If you've got a tough family situation and you can't deal with it, couples split up because of that.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, it's always important. And I was reading something recently, another research study that came out that talked about how it's so necessary to set boundaries with your family to make sure because there's a lot of times where the outside family, outside of your unit, because your unit is you and your partner, is really detrimental to the development of that relationship. And so making sure that you are prioritizing each other.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it's the two of you. Even outside of your kids will leave you.
Yeah.
Your parents will leave you. The dogs
and then
leave
it's just you.
And then it's just
the two
you.
of you.
So
yeah, exactly.
If you're not setting those boundaries, if you're not prioritizing each other, then we end up in a situation that's problematic. So family's beautiful. I love family, but it's really making sure that it's eyes wide open and you're having those honest communications.
Right.
And family dynamics change.
Yeah, they can.
As you have a relationship, as you have children of your own and families.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you know a lot of couples too, and we do, who have lived very close to their family, and sometimes that's a good thing. You know, they have the Sunday meals together, and they help one another. It's very supportive. Other times, it can be a real problem, and I think that those are basics that people have to talk about and say, where do we want to live? Do we want to live close by? Is that going to work for us or not?
Yeah, and it's all about communication and deciding. Everything is good for you if it works for your family unit. I have a friend who he eventually got married and did not do this, but when he was dating, he would say, I really just want a commune with all of my family, and we all live on, I'll get like a 10-acre property, and I'm going to get my sisters and my brothers and my parents. And I'm like, maybe we want to ease into that and talk to your future spouse before you set that up.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Not everybody would be interested in that.
Right, you have to share that.
But it could work for some people if you have those shared values.
You mentioned the word work.
Yes.
Okay, now that's another very delicate area. And it's changed somewhat. Post-COVID, people are thinking more about we want to live somewhere together that's comfortable and so forth and not work too hard. Maybe it's changed, I don't know, but at one time, and maybe it's still around, work was a problem for a lot of couples. Because if you became so involved with your work, that you didn't spend much time with each other, and it became an issue. Couples ended up splitting up because of that.
Yeah.
Have you seen the changes there?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So, we went through that period of time during COVID when everybody was forced to be together. And you're like, I haven't spent this much time with you ever. And so a lot of couples did have those kind of questions of, is this going to continue? But it's really figuring out where are your priorities. And a relationship doesn't flourish if you don't spend that time together.
True.
No matter your love language, it's still, quality time is essential. Having a connection is essential. And so realizing, is this work in the way of my relationship? And, it's something I'm super conscious of at this point in my life where I'm sure you are too.
Yeah.
You could work as much as you want, but not at the expense of my family, not at the expense of my love. And so you really want to make that balance. And sometimes it's difficult decisions.
Work is a very important part of life because, you have to pay your bills and you try to provide a certain lifestyle, which is important. I mean, I've never been, someone who just lives in the material world. I think it's important to have those basics. You need them, but also to live at a higher level of consciousness, to have a relationship, with your mate and with your family and, whatever spiritual values you have. A friend of mine years ago was single, and I remember he was talking to me, and he said, I'm dating right now, and he said, but I have the 4 seasons rule. And I said, the 4 seasons rule? What are you talking about? And he said, well, when I go out with someone, he said, I want to make sure that I spend 4 seasons with that person. He said, because I happen to be a very active person. I ski in the wintertime. I do a lot of swimming in the summertime. I'm very active. I bicycle. I do different. And then he said, I want to see how they react with holidays. With my family.
Yeah.
Are they moody? Do they get depressed? Are they happy? And he went through this whole thing scenario, and I said, what? It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because people can change with different seasons. What do you think of that?
I think that's a smart rule. I think a lot of people jump into relationships and make assumptions about how someone is going to be in the long term with a very short window of observation. If we're looking at it from a scientific perspective, you have to see how people are. You have to see how once, they say in that 12 to 18 months that you first meet someone, everyone's on their best behavior.
Right.
You haven't been in a real fight yet. You're not really dealing with real issues right away. And so you want to go through all of those seasons to see, is this someone that I want to continue to invest my energy in?
Yes.
And so I think a lot of times, I see especially the younger people on TikTok, and I'll scroll and they'll be like, leave them if they haven't proposed in 2 years or something. It's like, what are you in a rush for?
Right.
Why are we're rushing towards an end goal that's not of service to really the longevity of your healthy relationship? So I'm always saying, slow down.
Slow down.
And this is from someone, listen, the first time I got married, we got engaged in 6 weeks. I was 25 years old. I made terrible decisions. You're just in a different space. And I knew going in the second time, I'm like, we waited, oh my gosh, I think it was like 2.5 years before we really made that next level of commitment.
Well, see, there are a lot of people who are watching and listening to us and saying, you know, I think it's important because, you know, previous generations would get married really young because this was the way it was for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
But today, a lot of people are saying, I can wait. And it's not a big deal if I get married at 30.
Yeah.
Or longer.
Yeah. And actually, the coolest thing about the match study is that Gen Z are the most inclined to want to get married. I think it was like 57% of Gen Z are really looking for a lifelong marriage.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool. There was a lot of other statistics within there talking about just how Gen Z, our youngest kind of generation of adults coming into relationships, are the ones who are the most hopeful, the most open. You know, they're open in terms of religion and politics and race and all of these things that we've been very closed off to before and really interested in those really significant commitments.
Rachel, I'm going to bring up a topic that I think is really important.
I'm ready.
And you know what? And I think you're going to agree with this. I think one of the most detrimental things that can happen to a relationship at any stage is anger. I believe that anger is the enemy of love.
Yeah.
If there's too much anger, too much fighting going on, too much bickering, too much divisiveness, anger can be such a harmful thing to a relationship. You agree with that?
I do agree. I think, listen, everybody gets angry, but it's how you hold on to it, and it's also how you show it. And John Gottman does a lot of research around, or has done a lot of research around just how there is so much data around resentment and defensiveness, and he has a whole concept around the 4 horsemen that really leads to divorce. But for a lot of people to understand, it's how you express that anger. It's okay to get angry, right? We're always going to have things that irritate us.
No, it happens. I mean, we're real. We're human.
All the time.
It's how you handle it,
It's how you handle it, and it's also, are you respecting your partner through it? Yeah. Because when you have anger without respect, you create resentment and you create cruelty. And it's hard to come back from that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the minute that you start breaking those bonds of trust because you've expressed your anger in a really disrespectful way, it's the most difficult thing to come back from.
Yeah. You know, it leads us into another good topic, which was part of the study that was done here, and that is mental health.
Yes.
And being able to be more open about it and say, oh, you know what, there is something here that we need to address.
Yep.
Couple therapy, whatever you want to call it, or individual, whatever. But I think that they're more open now to saying mental health, God knows how important it is, right? Look at all the things that we're experiencing with people who have mental disorders. I like the fact that more and more couples are saying, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's something good about mental health, good mental health, and getting the support that we need.
Well, and that's what I love, because it showed that singles are more than ever willing to go see a therapist. And so if you're starting that before your relationship, if you're willing to go see a therapist to work through any sort of challenges that you're having while you're solo, that means that when you're in that relationship, you're more than likely willing to do that if you have challenges in your relationship. And so often I think people, they live in this vacuum and they don't express themselves, and they're not allowing themselves to work through things that could be small problems that turn into big problems because they're not dealing with it. So it's a huge part of where I think we're going in the right direction, because that openness is going to allow us to navigate all of the stressors that life has. And there's a lot of them.
I agree with you. No question about it. I also think, and I'm sure you agree with me, that humor is important in a relationship. You know, to be able to laugh at a situation, to laugh at yourself, and to keep it light and airy. Because when it becomes too heavy, you know what I mean? When these moods and, and these faces and all of that, you need to lighten it up. So I've always been a firm believer in being able to laugh at situations and finding ways to just enjoy each other's company in a happy way.
Agreed. And, it's really, if people could take themselves a little less seriously, I think we'd be in a good spot. And, we throw around, I think the word narcissism has been way overused because, on social media, it's like everyone's a narcissist and whatnot. But I do think that a lot of people are very egocentric, and
Too much of that today.
If less ego, more heart, and I
Yeah.
think we'd go a long way.
I agree with you. I mean, I've done stories on it. You know, how people who are just on social media all the time, posting these photos of themselves, become very narcissistic and think about themselves only, and you become such a self-centered individual
Yeah.
rather than being in a relationship,
Yeah.
being in a partnership with somebody. Whether it's romantic or whether it's business or whatever it happens to be, we need to, understand one another and talk.
Yeah, I was just going to say it spans so far beyond romantic relationships
Yeah.
when we really are so self-centered and we're not putting ourselves in another person's shoes, when we're not using empathy and compassion to have these conversations and make connections. We're really shooting ourselves in the foot in every situation, whether it's with friends, whether it's with professional relationships. I see, and it's something, it's a whole other conversation, but I work a lot in the corporate space, and in that direction, leaders are changing. People are changing. We're becoming more human.
Yeah.
And that means that we're focusing less on ourselves and we're focusing on connections and relationships.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's so important.
It is.
I want to go back a little bit because we were
Yeah.
talking about, compatibility.
Yes.
The things that are really important to you. And one thing that I made a note of here, because that was part of the study, the overturning of Roe v. Wade,
Yeah.
and how that's impacted dating and sexual relations and,
Yep.
and intimacy and so forth. Touch on that for a little bit, okay? Talk about that in terms of how couples are reacting to it and how it influences their dating life, but also in terms of wanting children and family.
Yeah, well, it's really bridging those conversations
Yeah.
and having those conversations sooner and understanding what people's positions are. So singles, are really more aware of what is my date's position on Roe v. Wade? What's my date's position on abortion? Before I am intimate with someone, make sure that we're on the same page. And so it's changing how people are making decisions of who they're dating.
Yeah.
And so it goes beyond, political affiliations. It's really about the specific, because it's a very human element.
No question about it.
It's really changed the way that people think.
But it's good that people are more open and talking about it. And I think the key word to all of this is being respectful.
Yes.
I think if we can respect everyone's opinion and not get into these arguments and so forth, that's when we're making progress.
Yeah.
Look, you're an amazing personality. Television, you've done a lot of things. You go out. You're also a speaker. You go out and you do a lot. So when you go out there, tell me where you go and what you talk about. What do you talk about?
Yeah, so I speak on human connection. So a lot of times I'll be brought in by corporations, associations, and so we don't talk about romance, but the foundations of relationships are the same.
Yeah.
So it really is, and a lot of times, I have a relatable leader. So my platform's on relatability, and I'm all about connection and relatability. And I have a new book that I'm working on now, The Relatable Leader, and I did research, and I haven't even released it yet. But what I found that was so interesting is, above all, is that teams are looking for respect. People are looking to be respected
Yes.
in the workplace.
Yes.
And so a lot of times I'll speak to organizations really looking to improve their team engagement and looking to build better leaders. And so we work through a lot of these similar things that we're talking about, because it comes down to trust and respect and communication.
No question about it. I'm glad you're talking about leadership because I'm very interested in that subject. As you know, I took a break from the news.
Yeah.
Did a year studying Harvard Business School, and leadership was a key topic. And one of the things, among other things, that we learned was to be a good leader, you have to listen. You have to be attentive.
Yes.
And you have to try and help other people as well to become leaders,
Yes.
to be a good role model. A lot of people argue that we lack leadership today, that it's become so political, that it's all about me and what I can benefit from, and not what the people need, not what our country needs, not what our town needs, not what our community needs, but what I need and what's good for me. Are we going to make some more progress with that? I mean, it's a subject that you're
so.
interested in. Tell me about it. Give me your thoughts on that.
It's interesting. So I was talking about this yesterday online, because I think so often we show up with assumptions based on our own perspectives, our own experiences, our own, ideas of what we think things should be. And the problem is that oftentimes we're not willing to shift, because change is scary, right? Especially if if we look at generational differences, and that's what I studied in my research, is the differences between boomers, Gen X's, millennials, Gen Z's, and there's a lot of issue right now because there's a shift. There's a shift in the mentality of what leadership is and what people want from their leaders. Sure. And if we're not doing that, I'm a young Gen X. I'm like an old. Depends on like when they're cutting it off. But it's an interesting thing to even see from my perspective because the workplace is filled with millennials and Gen Zs.
Yes.
And Gen Zs and millennials will be all of our emerging leaders coming up. And they're going to change the way things are done. And so
Hope in a
right now
better
there's,
way, yeah,
yes. And
yeah.
so I think that's where the hope comes in is like we're shifting into better mental health, more openness, more heart-centered leadership, more connection focused, and possibly just a little bit more malleable in terms of what does work look like.
Yeah, I hope so.
So it's an interesting shift, and I think we're still seeing a lot of this, but we're seeing there's a lot of friction right now because there's kind of this old guard that's saying this is the way it has to be, this is how it always has been, but it's not going to be like that anymore.
We're looking for some fresh ideas and a new direction, okay, a good positive direction.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about young people.
Yes.
Now, talk a little bit about some of the older folks,
Yes.
Who unfortunately, have lost their spouse, or they've gone through a divorce, or they've been alone for a long time, and they're looking for a relationship. And I've known couples, who have gone through that. And when you find someone who's lost their spouse, and they've been good together for many years, and they find somebody new, there are people who will criticize and say, well, why is he doing that? Why is she doing that? I mean, the person's only been gone for 2 years or whatever. And yet, when you see that person and they talk about how happy they are and how they feel that their spouse would have liked to have seen them enjoy life, talk about that a little bit, how the older generation needs to be, treated more kindly in many ways.
And I think The Golden Bachelor really helped with that.
Oh yeah, that's quite a show.
Yeah, and I was really excited to see it happen because I think for years, even when I was on Married at First Sight, people would be writing and saying, when are you going to do a version with older adults? And so when I saw The Golden Bachelor come out, I was like, this is great because it shows the example of you can find love again. There's no time limit, there's no age limit to really finding companionship. And that's the thing that I encourage people to understand is regardless of your judgment of whether it's too soon or maybe you were attached to their spouse and you had this image of their relationship, don't judge people on their desire for companionship.
Yes.
We are completely wired for it. As human beings, this is entirely what we are wired to do on this earth, is to be with people.
Yes.
And so it is extremely lonely to lose a spouse, and especially at that age where you still have this runway of life. Why would you not be open to meeting someone new? And I understand, go through your process, do it when you're ready, but I would really implore people not to.
I think it's
judge.
very important. Unfortunately, and I know at least one or two couples that have had problems with their children who were not ready to accept it.
Yeah.
And created a real issue for that couple. And that's kind of sad because it's a dynamic that you don't need. You need it to be more harmonious.
I've witnessed a lot of that myself.
You have,
too.
right?
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, and it's understandable, right? You can kind of you can put yourself in the position of the kids where you're like, that was mom and dad. Like I can't picture mom with a different person or dad with a different person. So it's really having a heart-to-heart conversation with those children, and also letting them know how lonely you are and how what the benefit of meeting a new partner is, because at the end of the day, if you're really having that heartfelt conversation, you're coming from here, not from here,
right.
then they may understand it in a different way instead of that mandate of, well, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. That doesn't typically,
no.
that doesn't land well.
We have to remember that it's all about love, okay? And love is a beautiful thing. A couple of quick questions before we go. What do you think is great about living in America? What's the best thing you can say about living in this country?
I think the coolest thing, because I get to travel a lot for media, for speeches, there is like a different country everywhere you land. If you go to Europe, you get to bounce around to different countries pretty easily, and you see the differences between each country. And I feel like it's the same thing with each city. Every city has this different flair to it. It's just the coolest thing to be experiencing that in real time and just really get to see. There's so much that I feel like I haven't explored half of this country the way I want to.
It's a great country. It is, and it's nice to be able to travel and experience all that you're talking about. I love children. As
love
you
them
do, love kids, and there's a wonderful quote from Carl Sandburg, and said every time you see a newborn baby, it's God voicing his opinion that the world should go on,
Aw.
should continue. It's an affirmation of life. So if you were to pass along some information to a newborn baby that they could tuck away someplace and look at it later in life and say, oh, Rachel DeAlto wrote this and sent this to me, and now I can read it and understand it. What would you pass along to a newborn baby?
Gosh, I'd say first, let your parents sleep. But I think the one thing, and it's such an interesting thing to always come back to, is that you are enough. If we could just hold on to that version of ourselves that are filled with self-worth, the way that we would show up in the world would be completely different.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of our romantic relationships, our friendships, and our professional relationships. Because we enter this stage of our life where we're in this place where we're not feeling as whole as we were when we were first born. And so if we could just remember that you're enough, I think a lot of decisions would be very different.
Yeah, I like that a lot. We've been talking about the subject of love and relationships, but it starts with loving yourself.
100%.
And I know we agree on that, because you have to appreciate and honor yourself and know that there is dignity about who you are.
Yep.
And by loving yourself, then you're capable of loving others as well. Rachel DeAlto, you're a fabulous guest.
Aw,
You really
Ernie,
are. You're
I love
terrific.
seeing you.
I love being with you as well, and I think the topic was fabulous. I hope a lot of people learned something from what
so
we
too.
talked about. And continued success to you and all the good things. Congratulations on your marriage, 7 months.
Thank
May you
you.
go,
Forever.
70 plus years. I hope you have a great
I was
time.
like, we'd have to live forever then.
Why not?
I might be AI generated by then.
Could be, maybe all of us, right? This is really me. I'm talking to you right now. This is not AI.
I'm a hologram.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thanks, Ernie.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time on Positively Ernie. Bye.
It's easy to get stuck reaching for the same familiar fruits and vegetables, even when you know a colorful variety is key. Balance of Nature's fruits and veggie supplements don't replace fruits and vegetables, but it makes it easy to add more variety to what you already eat. With 31 ingredients that are whole fruits and vegetables, switching it up is easy because we've already taken care of the hard part. Go to balanceofnature.com and get a free fiber and spice supplement, plus 35% off your first set as a new preferred customer by using discount code POD.